He's like, this came from a psychic? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, he looked at it, and he like, looked at the report, and he's like, okay. So he wrote total fantasy on top of the report and sent it back to Joe at Meade. The engineers said the sub can't survive at depth. It's way too big. He's the only guy who thinks it's a sub. Yeah, well, your total fantasy launches in 112 days. Send it back to the Pentagon. Someone at the National Reconnaissance Office tasked a satellite to do a flyover, and they snapped pictures of the Red October submarine.
I would imagine that sparked a lot of interest in remote viewing in Robert Gates.
7 stories high, 75 feet wide, almost 2 football fields long, canted launch tubes, special propulsion, the whole thing. He nailed it all.
Why would people want to do this type of research?
Well, I had to face that question all the way back in, would you believe it, back in 1958 and 59.
Most of what we're talking about is actually in the present. What is this diagnosis that's happening? What is the pain this woman's feeling in her knee? But also, remote viewing is also looking into the future.
Yeah. It started with a study that was done on what's called priming. The primer flashed after your decision, altered the timing in which you could select the word choice in the same way that it did when you put it before.
They're actually experiencing the feeling of free flight, and then through the dream, they interpret it in whatever way they can through their logic.
Yes, and virtually all cases that we've encountered where a person has a falling dream, and that's re-entering the physical body.
So do you think we all share the same consciousness? I'm always looking for the scientific explanation on why that happens, why I'm able to tap into, I guess I would call it a higher consciousness.
Extrasensory perception, or what that's suggesting to us, is that consciousness can reach into the future and see a future bit of data and influence your decision in the now.
How about the past?
That's a suggestion that consciousness goes out beyond the body.
The best way I can describe that is, for example, that we now know that anyone who has a flying dream is symbolizing an out-of-body state.
I mean, there are things in us as humans that we don't explore and we can do, that we just don't do. There was a constant barrage of life or death situations, tell us what you can see. These are special operations that are going live. Tell us which way we need to turn, what's going on. Somebody just got kidnapped. We got probably 18 hours before he's dead. That was taxing on a lot of those remote viewers. Most of the intelligence agencies in the United States government started overtasking the remote viewers down there, so they got crushed.
How many remote viewers were there?
Nella Jones is a psychic detective. She says she can see crimes. She's helped to solve dozens of frauds, kidnappings, and even murders. Nella has worked mainly with the country's biggest police force, the Metropolitan Police in London. They refuse to talk openly about their use of psychic detectives, but Nella has a secret letter of commendation from a senior officer.
How I do it is very difficult to explain. It's just, if you have an itchy ear, you'll scratch it. But if I'm involved with a crime, I look at it and I solve it.
What are some of the technologies that they implemented, and how did that improve your remote viewing experience?
They invented binaural beats, right? Where you have one frequency in one ear and one frequency in the other ear, and the difference between the two, your brain then has to rectify, and it turns on special areas in your brain that can then allow for weird experiences or cool experiences to occur. Or what that's suggesting to us is that consciousness can reach into the future and see a future bit of data and influence your decision in the now.
The bomb story, I can relate to in my 14 years of operations within, the different the SEAL teams, the agency, there is a feeling, that you do get when things are about to happen.
Like everybody's connected into it. It's whether or not you use it and whether or not you exercise it that where you can actually get better at it.
That is the most remarkable remote viewing piece of information I've ever heard.
Where does that intelligence come from, except below the level of the cells themselves coming up into the cells?
Holy.
So that's another pretty good proof that consciousness is something that is more of a field of intelligence.